All right, let's talk about the best eSIM for the USA and why I think that is going to be Saily. I'm American, but I spend most of the year in Latin America. I used to live in China, spent time globally, and I've always traveled back to the US. And I've always found telecom, specifically in the US, to be extremely painful. Mobile networks there, it's complicated. What I find really frustrating about US cell service is, one, providers are really looking to lock you into a contract. So anybody who's traveling there for a short duration, you're gonna have a bad time. Prepaid SIMs kind of exist somewhere in the US, but they're not easy to find. It's not really a thing culturally. And if you do sign a contract with a US cell provider and you travel internationally, well, the roaming charges can be absurd. These are all reasons I started using eSIMs when I travel back home to the US. With an eSIM, I land, and it doesn't matter whether I'm at JFK, LAX, somewhere in Texas, I can pull my phone out and I know that I'm going to have data. And I've tried a bunch of services in the US, Google Fi, Airlo, Ola, I think it's called, and now Saily. And I can say that Saily has consistently been the best eSIM, not just for international travel, which I've also found to be the case, but specifically for travel in the US. So you have two options when traveling to the US. One, you can just accept the roaming fees from your home country. Two, you can get an eSIM. Spoiler alert, option number two, getting an eSIM way easier. Just do this. So with roaming, I'm not going to explain in detail why roaming is a bad option. It's overpriced per gig. Sometimes there are caps on how much data you can actually use while roaming. And there's always this worry in the back of your mind where you're going how much money am I actually spending, while traveling? Whereas with an eSIM, you don't have to worry about that. You're prepaying for a certain amount of data. And so you don't really have to worry about any cost overruns. When the data is out, the data is out. So let's talk about Saily specifically and why it's the best eSIM for the USA. First, it works anywhere. It actually works in over 190 countries. I'm not even sure how many countries are globally, maybe 200, 203 or something. Saily gives you basically complete global coverage and complete coverage from within the US. Some eSIMs, they might only connect with one US carrier, which, could work if you're limited to a particular city, maybe a particular region where that carrier is dominant. But if you're traveling across the breadth of the US, the big country, you know that, I'm sure, you want an eSIM provider that has partnerships, multiple partnerships with telecoms in that country. Saily does. So because of this, it doesn't matter whether you're in New York and then LA and then New Orleans and then Mobile, Alabama, wherever you might be with Saily, it's going to be connecting to different partner towers and you're going to have more or less continuous coverage. At least that has been my experience using it extensively while traveling through, a handful of the 50 states. So another reason I love Saily, it's cheap, the prices are reasonable. And again, what I mentioned earlier in the video, you're not gonna have cost overruns. I really like the idea that you're prepaying for data and when that data runs out, it's out. You just have to re-up, top up the next time you have connectivity. No big deal. So as a reference point with Saily, let me see here. Yeah, you can get a week of data for just a few dollars. Really, really, really affordable. Another thing I like about Saily, it's fast, really fast, consistent 5G speeds, same as you would get with a local provider. And Saily is never going to throttle your speeds, which isn't it crazy that any telecom out there would ever throttle your speeds because you were using too much data? Saily's not going to do that. Now, maybe the best part about Saily, it's really easy to set up. I've set up a bunch of these eSIM providers over the past couple of years. Saily, it's got the quickest, most intuitive setup process. When setting up Saily compared to other eSIMs, you're going to click fewer buttons, you're going to wait less time, and you're just going to have to fiddle with your phone's configuration less. I think it took me 2-3 minutes, maybe 7 minutes has been the longest. And I got to mention this, a super cool thing about Saily that you don't necessarily get with other eSIM providers is that you have the app installed and you can change your plans depending on the country you're in. You don't have to reinstall eSIMs over and over again. With competitors like with Airlo, if you're traveling through a bunch of countries, well, you might have to set up multiple SIMs, one for each country or, one for each region. And so I found that in the past with Airlo, I've ended up with 8 different eSIMs saved and they're kind of confusingly named and I forget what name represents which SIM and the whole thing. Saily, simplicity, not going to get that. You just have to download the one eSIM once and you're good to go. So like I said, I've used Saily through a handful of states, New York, Texas, California, Nevada, and generally I found it to work really well. Didn't get perfect coverage in some of the more rural areas, but that's just a reality of connectivity. I think even with a local carrier in rural Nevada, my connection would have dropped out. In major metro areas, in smaller cities, Saily is probably going to work just fine. And if you're going off grid, well, I guess you're going off grid. That's kind of the point, right? To disconnect, even though there is a very good chance that you still will have some bars of connectivity with Saily. Now, if you're considering Saily or a local SIM card, just go Saily. Dude, it's like 10, 20 bucks. Just be done with it. So if you're going to the US soon, first have fun, especially if it's your first time. It's a very quirky country. Enjoy the nature. It's one of the most beautiful countries on earth, in my definitely biased opinion. 2, download Saily. It's on iOS, it's on Android, and we've got discount links available in that video description below. The only thing you really need to check is that your phone supports eSIMs. If you buy your phone in the past 2-3 years, it almost certainly has eSIM support. But again, that's just the one thing you need to look into before going with a plan like Saily. So you see on the screen here, you just need to pick a USA eSIM plan. As you can see, they start at just a few bucks. And if you use our link in the description, you can get that price down even lower. Literally that simple. It's so simple that I'm just gonna end the video now. Go claim your discount. You know what to do. 20, 40 bucks on Saily. Get it, get going, and enjoy the vast beauty of the US. See you in the next video. Cheers.